Hello, everyone, and welcome. We know our Map to College is a really great event that we're able to bring to San Francisco and the Bay Area. Thanks for joining, though it's a virtual setting this year. Just a reminder that we are recording this presentation. So I already pushed that button there, just letting everyone know again. We're going to wait just a minute or two to let others log on in case there are any complications. While we're waiting for more people to join, letting you know about the chat function for, about the question function on your screen to be able to ask questions throughout the presentation. We're about at 50% of our attendees at the moment, so just another second before we start. All right, everyone, welcome here to UCSF's annual Map to College, our money application personal essay that it is. Usually every year we do it, this year with lots of different changes to how we are figuring out life. It is online. Thank you for joining us from hopefully the comfort of your home and your space. Again, if you're just joining us, there is a question and answer function that we're going to be using throughout the presentation. Welcoming you to our presentation, myself and Emmanuel. My name is Karen Loriana. I'm going to hand it over to Emmanuel to do the next slide.
Hi, everyone. Like Karen said, my name is Emmanuel Padilla. Before we get started, just to introduce y'all to who and what the Center for Science Education and Outreach is. This is our staff, and we've done this, I think, since before computers were invented. With my director, Don Woodson, was born with the dinosaurs. However, this is, I think, our 15th year doing Map to College, and our first one, like Karen said, virtually. And the intention of this is, with everything that's going on right now, I remember when I was in your shoes in high school, I had no idea how to apply to college. And now as an adult, I have no idea what's gonna happen next tomorrow with everything that's going on right now. Use the Map to College as kind of a way to start filtering and finding out a way and a path of what it means that I'm gonna apply to college. What are the steps I need to do? And what kind of questions or curiosities do I have that will be answered today? Again, this is us. My name is, again, Emmanuel Padilla. He, him, his, and my email is down there if you'd like to reach out about any further questions. The emails will be added at the end of the presentation also. And like Karen said, this is recorded and it will be on our website.
Karen Loriana, M, she, her, hers, and Aya. So my email's there as well as an EAOP coordinator for any families, caregivers, students, anyone aspiring to learn more about the process of higher education. Please feel free to reach out. We're not able to serve every single one of the schools here in the Bay Area. So if y'all are able to take that step, please reach out, and any questions that you have after this presentation and tomorrow's, we would be very, very happy to be able to connect with you. Next slide, please.
And also, I forgot to mention, I too was an EAOP student. So these 2 days look like this. Today, we're going to go over understanding what the personal insight questions are. Our second session will be the community college transfer process. Our session number 3 will be private school application, and then we'll have our closing. Tomorrow, we're going to go over the UC application, the California State University application process, and everyone's fear, how am I going to pay for it? We're going to go over financial aid over our 6th and final session tomorrow. In depth, we're going to do this, and I'll let Karen explain what today will look like.
Thank you, Emmanuel. Today's 3 different sessions. We have understanding the personal insight questions for the UC application. Then we're going to be followed up with the community college transfer process, and we're going to close today with the private school application. Those are the 3 different sections for today. For tomorrow, you can join us for sessions 4, 5, and 6. Next slide. I am here to introduce, yet again, Emmanuel Padilla, the man behind the mic here. He's going to be doing our personal insight questions. I'll hand it over to you, Emmanuel.
Thank you, Karen. I think this is the first time in my life I've ever had like 5 different introductions, but I'm glad it's with all of us today. So we're going to go over selecting and writing your personal insight questions. This session will take 35 minutes, so it'll be a little condensed. When I was a teacher, the biggest thing I had was timing issues, so we'll get through this together. I bring this up because there are 14 factors the UC can't uses to review the applicants. This includes your academic GPA and A through G courses, completion of special projects, location of the student's secondary school and residence. One I want to point out right now, especially, is bullet point number 2, the scores on the ACT and SAT, if students choose to submit them. For this application cycle, UCs are accepting scores if you decide to submit them. If you do not decide to submit them, you will not be penalized. What does that mean? Tune in tomorrow for our UC presentation by Angel Max Guerrero. Don't you hate when I do that? These are the 14 factors. So it's going to say, how is this applicant going to stand out? Your 9-step process for this application looks like this. First thing is you're going to set up your account, which, let me stop right there. As myself and a lot of my colleagues know, working with a lot of the high school students, a lot of you, the hardest part of your application is sometimes isn't the application, it's remembering your login. So please have a space where you save that with your password and your email. You're going to start the application. You're going to look at the different campuses and the major from each campus, the scholarships from each campus you can apply to, about you, your demographic information, your academic history, your activities and awards, your test scores if you choose to submit them, and what we're going to go with over today, your personal insight questions. Now, another question I get a lot is, do I have to apply to each different UC campus? Remember, there are 10 UC campuses, but as a senior in high school, you're only able to apply to 9. The 10th one, UCSF, is a graduate campus that you apply to after you finish your undergrad. Keep that in mind, and remember, again, to save your password. When you do one application, the only thing you need to change for each UC is the major that you apply to. So it's one general application, and then you select a different major from each campus that you want to apply to. Applications are due November 30th, last date. So what are the PIQs? The PIQs were born out of the comprehensive review. Remember, these are not essays. I know in a lot of English classes they're used as assignments. They are very helpful to use as assignments. However, there's a different thing that UC representatives look for. You are to apply to answer 4 PIQs, and each one has a maximum of 350 words. Does that mean I could do 100 words? Yeah, you could do that, but is that a good way to sell yourself? I don't know. Remember, it's quality versus quantity, and this process is not linear. It's a process that you need a lot of drafts. When I did mine, when I was in high school, not too long ago, I saw that I only had to do 350 words and I thought, cool, this is going to be easy. I could get this over with in an hour. And then I came to realize that it's really, really difficult trying to sell everything about yourself in so little space. Something that was very, very helpful for me was a lot of rough drafts and just writing and seeing what comes out. And my first draft to my final draft was completely different. So, again, what is the purpose of this? Obviously, it completes the application. It's a way to self-advocate for yourself. Who are you? We want to know who you are more than a student. You are a person, first of all, and a PIQ gives you a chance and to answer that question. It's a way to set you apart. Why should you be admitted into this university? Why do you deserve to be there? All of you deserve to be in college is just a way of putting it into words. It gives a reader context about who you are as an applicant more than your grades, more than what you do at school. It's this is who I am. So what are the basics? You have 8 questions to choose from. You only respond to 4. No question is better than the other. This is another thing I've seen is which one should I answer? Which one is a better question? The better question is the one that you feel you could answer the best. Which one resonates to you more? Students should choose questions that pertain most to their experiences. Which one is going to give the reader a complete picture of who you are? It gives insight on individual circumstance. And lastly, again, 350 words is the max. Now let's go back to the no question is better than the other. Let's break down each question. We're going to break down each question to see what in general is it asking. You know, when your teachers give you a lot of different work, a lot of times like, yo, what are you asking? Let's find out what UC is asking with each insight question. The first 4, PIQ number 1, 2, 3, 4. What you'll notice on the screen is that there's 4 different highlights, 5 different highlights, and 3 circles. Number 1, describe an example of your leadership experience in which you have positively influenced others, helped resolve disputes, or contributed to group efforts over time. What this question is asking for is what is your leadership experience and how have you done that over time? What the readers are looking for is how are you a leader and how have you built on that leadership? What is helpful is how did you get to that leadership position? Also, this doesn't mean that you have to be president of your school. It means I was a leader by starting the girls' soccer team, or I was a leader in my class by being the teacher's aide, or I was this. It doesn't have to be some grandiose title. It could be whatever sets you apart as a leader. How did you influence others? How did you resolve disputes? And what was it over time? Remember, this is about you and you only. I read a lot of essays where they talk about this is what we did. This is what we did. Take away that we and think about the I. What did I do as a leader and how did I develop this over time? Your second PIQ, every person has a creative side and it can be expressed in many ways. Problem solving, original, innovative thinking, and artistically, to name a few. Describe how you express your creative side. So everyone could say they're creative. I could say I'm creative because of how I do my hair sometimes. However, what is the proof of that? How do I express it? Why do I express it this way? Why do I feel that this creativity is something that expresses and shows who I am? How are you going to do that for the UCs? But better yet, let me check myself. Not for the UCs. How are you going to do that for yourself? A lot of times I've seen a student write a poem, which is cool, but that is something that is, I wouldn't recommend that for a personal insight question. Number 3, what would you say is your greatest talent or skill? How have you developed and demonstrated that over time? With that one, it's your greatest talent or skill. And again, like number 1, it asks for the time. How have you shown and proved that you've done that over time? And the key thing about that is that's kind of like your evidence to what you're saying is your greatest talent or skill. Now, it has to be one that truly impacts who you are and your community. I could say that my greatest talent is being a Raider fan because you know how hard that is. And over time, no one's going to want to read that. It has to be something that impacts you and impacts the community around you. Something that is important and means a lot to you. Again, for the first 3, it's the I, over time, and what is the proof of what it's asking. Number 4, describe how have you taken advantage of a significant educational opportunity or worked to overcome an educational barrier you have faced. With this one, it's two different questions in one. And I highlighted advantage of a significant educational opportunity. For example, if some of you are in the early EAOP program or ETS or Upper Bound or MESA or another one that you connect to, that is an educational opportunity that you took advantage of. Or let's say your high school is broken up into academies. For example, the Academy of Health, the Academy of Engineering, the Academy of Arts of Visual Performing Arts. That is an educational opportunity because you signed up for that academy. How have you taken advantage of that? Now, the second part of this question, or the other side of this question, is what are some barriers you have faced? And I know being in a high school, sometimes you don't notice that there's barriers you're facing, but believe me, there are. For example, the high school I went to, we had 2 AP classes. That could be an educational barrier because I wanted to take an AP class, but I didn't have the space to do so. This is part of your S of your application where you're able to say, I was not able to take advantage of this opportunity because there was a barrier. So this is what I did instead. With this one, what I did, because I answered this question when I applied to college, was I spent a lot of time describing the problem, and I didn't describe enough about what I did. Focus on what you did here to overcome that educational barrier. For the advantage of a significant educational opportunity, why did you take advantage of it? And what have you gained from it? A lot of times I hear, we did this. What did you do? I statements. With all these 4 and the next 4, as a high school student, everyone tells you, you're not doing enough. You're not doing enough. You need to do this. You need to do this. Well, sometimes you need to say, I am doing this. You have to learn how to do a brag sheet and brag about who you are. It's awkward bragging about who you are sometimes, especially at your age. But for these 4 and these 8 personal insight questions, sell yourself and know that you deserve to be at the university you want to be at more than the next person.
Manuel, if I could interrupt before you move on to the next 4. We have a lot of questions in the chat. I appreciate all of you for using that function about if these slides or this presentation are going to be available later. And I just want to reiterate that it will be on our CSEO website, the entire recording of this. I just checked with our technical staff, and just a reminder that none of the attendees are being recorded. This is solely a recording of the presentation. Anyone who had a preview screen set up was just showing them that their video was working for their own purposes, but the presentation is being recorded and will be available. Back to you, Emmanuel.
Thank you, Karen. And Karen does a great job of helping me stop talking because I could go on a TED Talk for 4 hours. So thank you, Karen. So back to our PIQs, which will be recorded for all of you. Number 5, and again, to reiterate, think about each one as a step-by-step process because not only is your login, sometimes I've seen a lot of struggle with, it's, I don't know what question to pick. I don't know what question to pick. Use this as an example of what speaks to you. All right, whatever it is that speaks to you. My recommendation when I taught was answer all of them in a brainstorm way, and then you'll start seeing little trends in each one. And some of them will be a lot more in depth because that connects to you more. PIQ number 5, it goes as such. Describe the most significant challenge you have faced and the steps you have taken to overcome this challenge. How has this challenge affected your academic achievement? This one is a chance for you to show how resilient you are. All of you are resilient. Now it's just putting it into words. For this one, it could be a challenge that is a challenge for you. There could be many challenges that we all have. I had a lot of challenges in my upbringing, but what is a challenge for you? And what steps did you overcome to overcome this challenge? I'm gonna go back one slide, like slide number 4, where you overcome an educational barrier. Back to slide number 5, something that I had to struggle with, it was I spent too much talking about the challenge. This is what happened. This is why I grew up like this. This is how difficult it was for me. This is how it felt going to school. That's a good story, but I wasn't given a picture of who I was and what I did to show my resiliency. For this one, take a moment to think about what did you do, the steps that you did that you know not many other people do, let alone students. And the second part where it says, how has this affected your academic achievement? This is a space to say that it did not impact my academic achievement. It did not hold me back. And if it did, for example, if you got a low grade in one of your classes and you made it up, this is a chance that you could say, I got a low grade in this class because of this was going on in my life. I remember I wrote about I had a D in chemistry my first semester my junior year. And I made it up in the summer, but this question specifically was one where I was able to use and benefit myself to say, this is the reason why I had a D in chemistry. This is what I did to make it up. And this is how it, though it impacted my academic achievement at the time, this is how I was able to benefit from it. So again, what is a proof that you're doing this? Personal income and PIQ number 6. Think about an academic subject that inspires you. Describe how you have furthered this interest inside or outside the classroom. Think about when I was in elementary school, my favorite subject was PE. And we did it like once every 2 months. That's how long ago I went to school. So I couldn't write about PE. But in high school, an academic subject that inspired me was journalism and English. And I was able to say what I did in that class that inspired me, why it inspired me, and what I did outside the classroom to further that passion. What programs did I do? What opportunities did I take advantage of? This one sounds a lot like PIQ number 4. And a lot of these kind of overlap, but make it specific to you. What subject so far in high school inspires you? Maybe it could be this class that you took a course at the community college. Or maybe it's one in college that inspires you. However, how have you taken advantage to further that passion? Let's say you love psychology, but you never took a psychology class in high school. What are things that you've done to further that interest in that psychology class? It'll be really difficult for me to write about a subject I haven't taken, but if you feel that you can, brainstorm it out. Let's see what happens. Again, your application isn't due till November 30th, so get a lot of ideas out there. And just to reiterate another point, you can turn in November 1st or November 30th. There is not a penalty for turning it in anytime in that period. Just get it in by the 30th. Number 7, what have you done to make your school or community a better place? For this one, a lot of students have talked about how they have done this with their club, done this with their club, done this with their sports team, done this with their internship. Cool. But again, use I statements. Use ways to say that this is what I did. This is how I bettered my community. This is how I did my school or place. If you do use the club option, think about, why did you join that club? What did you notice in your school or your community that made you want to join that club? What is the reason? Where's the roots of this one? And lastly, number 8, beyond what has already been shared in your application, what do you believe makes you stand out as a strong candidate for admissions to the University of California? For this one has to be something where they call it the elevator speech. And it's pretend you're with the admission director of the school that you want to go to. What would you tell that person to say, I need to go to your institution for this reason? Now, again, this one kind of overlaps the other questions, but if there's something that it's not asking specifically, use number 8 to better your application and better your chances. And not only that, just show the people who you are. I statements, and make sure to brag about who you are and yourself. It's okay to brag about this. I remember when I used to brag all the time, they're like, no, you're not this. That's always gonna happen. But use this moment to say, like, I am this person. I am somebody that's doing things. Now with the 1 through 8, the PIQs 1 through 8, a question I always get is, which one is the one that I should answer? Which ones do most people answer? And you're gonna notice something crazy. They're very balanced. So PIQ's first years our applicants are responding to go as such. Everything is around 9 to 5, is from almost 10 to 15%. The top 2 are PIQ number 1 and PIQ number 6. So again, that should start taking out the dust up here sometimes that we have, is which one am I going to apply to? Which one should I answer? Should I answer the PIQ number 8 because only 9% answer that one? Should I answer PIQ number 1 because 15 answer that one? Again, it's the 4 that you connect to. The 4 that you connect to. To finish up with the PIQs allow you to tell your story, We want to hear them. We want to hear the story, but we want to hear what you had to do to be part of it. What makes you you. It's a chance to add depth to something that is important to you. It allows for admissions personnel to get to know about your life experiences, interests, ambitions, and inspirations. And you'll see the last bullet is important because it's in all caps and all yellow. Who are you? A lot of times we describe ourselves by what we do I'm a student, I'm doing this. Prove it here and use a lot of I statements for that one. Again, you see a slide that looks like the last one. The only difference is we finally see students. It's your voice, your story. Opportunity to provide context and give a whole picture of who you are. It is review for content, not structure. It's a snapshot of who you are. When readers read your application, they just see a bunch of words. How are you going to stand out? How is somebody going to say, this person, Karen is cool. She's a resilient student, and this is her proof. We need to admit her into this university. It is personal insight questions. Now think about what PRQs are not, and it sounds kind of redundant. They're not an audition. It is not an academic essay, as in, yeah, academic essay is good. I just wrote a 30-page one 2 months ago. It's not a vocabulary quiz. It's not a creative writing piece. And it's not a retelling of an entire life. Though a lot of these stories are personal and they are you, you're not going to retell your whole story. It's pick a part of this story, but show how you're the author of that story. Show how you write your story and you're going to continue to write it and what that means when you go into that university. Additional tips. When you apply, you're not, like I said earlier, you're not talking about one campus. You're talking to all the campuses you apply to. But don't use inappropriate use of humor. Sometimes you're not that funny, or sometimes that's not that appropriate. Quotations. I remember sometimes I see somebody start off their personal insight question with a quote. I want to be able to quote you. I don't want to use that quote to start leading the presentation. I want to quote you. I want to quote the student I read in the personal insight question. Don't give up your 350 words on someone else's words. Additional tips. Stick to the facts and personal examples. Generalities is something like everybody does this, or no one ever knew, or we did this. Stick to the facts and personal examples of what you did. Repetition is also something. Give us new info we can't find in other sections of the application. Asking philosophical questions. Get to the point and tell us what you mean. For example, I did a lot of poetry in high school. I would never start with a question. Never, even though it was arts, it felt great. And this is something that maybe might help hinder you in the creative part of the personal insight question. But get to the point that you want to prove. Questions are cool, but again, they take a lot of valuable space in your writing. Acronyms, spell it out for us. So for example, when I said I was an EAOP, a lot of you were probably thinking, what does that mean? EAOP is the Early Academic Outreach Program. Once you name it, then you're able to use the acronym in your personal insight question. But the first time you mention it needs to be the full name of what you're saying. If I say ETS, that could be testing service, that could be something else. It's the Educational Talent Search, for example. Spell it out for us. Never assume when you're writing these. Always control the narrative and set the tone. These are some common missed opportunities. I ended with acronyms and I'm starting with acronyms. Don't assume that the reader is familiar with your acronym. Quotations, space is limited. We would rather hear your thoughts in words. Philosophy, these responses should be direct rather than abstract and philosophical. Creative writing, like I mentioned earlier about poems, cliches, or haikus are less helpful in this type of writing. We want the student to write about the creativity rather than submitting a creative writing sample. Titles, restating prompts take away from available word count, so students do not need to do so. Flowery language, want to hear the student's everyday voice, so students should use language that reflect who they are. With that, we don't mean put hashtags. No, don't put any hashtags. Keep it academic language, but at the same time, don't try too hard to find words that sound nice. Storytelling and scene setting, students should be direct and intentional rather than descriptive. Jokes and sarcasm, everyone has different sense of humor. Readers may not understand or agree with your humor. And don't be negative. Think about this. When you write a PIQ, UCs don't want to say, we feel sorry for this student, we should let them in. Think about it more as this student faced all these issues. We need to admit this student because of his or her resiliency. We need to admit this student because they will continue to do so at this school. This student did amazing things with their club and they made their school a better place. They will do so at our institution. Again, use a lot of brainstorms. Right now it's September 23rd. It's not due until 2 months, November 30th. So use your brainstorms. Reach out to us. Reach out to people at your school. Reach out to folks that are part of your educational preparation program so that they could see it and just get opinions from them to help better your writing. A lot of times a blind eye works better because when I write something, I feel it's great, it's amazing, and someone reads it and they say, bro, what is that? I always try to use the language of the high school students, like that is not lit, that is dry. But to go back to this, make sure you have other people giving you feedback about what you're writing. And also read it out loud sometimes. When you read it out loud, you'll notice that maybe I should have put a comma there, or maybe I need a period, or this doesn't sound too good. This isn't what I'm trying to say. All this will help you with your personal insight questions. Again, there's 8 of them. You pick 4 of them. And with that, thank you and good luck. Now we have 10 more minutes for this part. Maybe I could answer some questions from the Q&A if there are some.
I can field those over to you. We had quite a lot of different questions about if they can talk to a specific activity that took place in their lives, or how detailed they should be about what's going on with their activities and their extracurriculars. So if you could just talk to how detailed they should be.
Thank you for asking that. That's a great question. I mean, all questions are great questions. I think with that one, it should be what is your activity? Name it, but don't go into in depth about what it is. Go in depth about what you did with that activity. For example, I in high school was a part of a group that was the first to go to, we fundraised money to go to Washington, D.C. I didn't know it was anything big. I was like, yo, we're just writing letters. The thing I focused on was that I wrote the letters, I presented to council members, I fundraised, I sold chocolates, which I thought we were supposed to do, but that was something completely different. I bring that example up because instead of saying we went to Washington, we went to this place, we went to different government organizations, we saw this, we met this. I said, I did this in order to have the opportunity to go there. That was my activity. Or for my sports teams, I said, I played baseball. However, I organized a car wash so that we could get new, baseball socks. You could think baseball, we had to get new baseball socks. It's whatever you do with the activity, but think about what did you do? It seems common that we fundraise, we all sold chocolates. For this application, you sold those chocolates. Where did you sell them? Why did you sell them? Or we had we sold food during lunch. You sold food during lunch. I sold food during lunch. I wanted to sell food because I knew my group needed this. So again, focus on the you and brag about it. And you're gonna start feeling good like, I did that? Wow, I didn't even recognize that I was doing something else. So again, focus on what you did and have confidence in the ability that you did. You are enough and you are doing enough.
We have another question right now that is something that I hear a lot in the classrooms, is that there's a little bit of stress about which insight question to choose. And I know you showed the pie graph of how the distribution is pretty equal across all 8, but how would you answer the question of, I'm really stressed out about which insight question to pick?
That's a great, and again, all these are amazing questions because again, when I did these applications, I was so confused when I was 16 at the time when I did these. All right, so which one would I pick? I think something that was helpful for me was that I brainstormed each question out, as in with the APIQs, I just wrote whatever came to mind. because it was for me only. It was no worry about grammar. It wasn't a worry about does it sound right. I just went off and just wrote. I'm real good writing on my notebook, so I just wrote on my notebook what helped. Or right now, I know some students do all their application on the phone. Y'all are amazing. I can't do that, but you can just write it on your docs on your phone or in your notes, whatever comes to mind. And then in that way, you'll allow yourself to kind of figure out which one means calls you out more. Which one are you noticing has a lot more quantity? And with that quantity, you can pick out the quality that would be your PIQ. So think about it like this: go with the confidence that these are not going to get graded anytime soon. And this is just you to clear all the ruffle, the shuffle, ruffle and shuffle in your head to get away from like the new NBA 2K that my little brother plays or whatever, or Animal Planet. I don't know what y'all play anymore, but there's a lot of stuff that we have thoughts about. Especially, oh, by the way, a pandemic. Use these APIQs just to get out of all that and free write them at first, and then you'll figure out which one connects to you more. Or if you look at them again, which one is like, oh, let me try that one. Try it. You have nothing to lose right now. So make sure you just to try all of them and don't put so much pressure on them right now. Just get it done, get it out. Just get it out. And then once you get the brainstorming out, have someone else look at them. It could be someone like myself or Karen. Or it could be someone like, like, I don't know about your little brother or sister or siblings, but it could be your friend, someone in your class. I mean, it's hard to do so that in person right now. You could share with them the doc and they could read it and then tell you what they think about it. But just get it out of here, get it out of your head, and just try all of them right now.
I have two really great questions. One is, and I think this tends to be where people think there is an additional PIQ, but somebody did talk about how there is an additional comment section. They just wanted to know if it was true, if that was there or not. And then I wanted to add to that, is this a place for them to stick another PIQ?
I see why not. If it's there, use it. Remember, you have to leave no question unanswered in your head. Never feel like I should have done that. What if I do? We'll do it. If you want to add additional comments there, add them, because once you submit it, it's submitted. If you need to change something about your demographics or about your financial information, cool. But once you submit it, it's submitted. So instead of sending your application with that, I should have done this, or what if I did that, then do it. Put it on the additional comment section. Take advantage of that section.
Another question is, how far back in history can we talk about for the questions? So I'm assuming, how far back should we go to pump ourselves up and talk about our anecdotes?
With that one, you can use that one. It's on your activities and awards also. For your PIQs, if you're having a hard time figuring out which one it is that I want to answer or that I have nothing to put for this, then you can use that to kind of as a jump start to describe about how it's impacted you now. So it could be activity you did as a third grader at E.R. Taylor Elementary School and how it impacted you at Thurgood Marshall High School. Use it as kind of somewhere to jump off. If it's a creative dance that I did in elementary school, cool. I'm gonna say that I did it in elementary school, that dance performance, and how I'm still doing it now. I'm still practicing, and how that started off my passion and my love for whatever I was doing.
And I want to close out with this question because I know that it's gonna have a lot of similar situations for many different high school students. So I had an anonymous viewer ask, would going to summer school because you failed a class be taken as a disadvantage?
No.
Oh, I'm sorry, I read that wrong. Would going to summer school because you failed a class be a good thing to do, be an advantage?
Well, let's say this: if you failed the class, would you want that on your application? I wouldn't. By doing it in summer school and taking advantage and taking and covering that, one, you're fulfilling the A through G requirement. Two, you answer the question, and you can use your PIQs to answer this question about why did I fail this class? What was the reasons why I failed this class? And why did I go to summer school? Because I know a lot of you know at least 5 to 10 people that failed a class and we're like, whatever, I don't even need it to graduate. You're not thinking about graduating high school, you think about graduating college. So again, make that whatever if you did fail, make it up in summer school, night school, just make it up in time for so that it can reflect on your application.
Thank you so much, Emmanuel.
Thank y'all so much. Again, this will be recorded and on the website. Karen, thank you for passing along the questions, and great questions, because I know when I had a question, I was always thinking like, no, it'll be okay. Always ask in person, or whatever in person means right now, but during this map to college thing. Our next presenters are Jackie Nguyen, who is a transfer opportunity program coordinator at City College for UC Davis, and Gabriela Alvarenga, who is a City College of San Francisco Transfer Center counselor. The community college transfer process.
All right. Thank you, Emmanuel and Karen, for inviting Gabby and I to be your presenters today. We hope that this next presentation will provide you a clear picture as you plan out your next steps toward higher education. My name is Jackie Nguyen. I am a program coordinator for the Transfer Opportunity Program at UC Davis. I oversee 5 different community colleges that participate in my program, and we have Gabby.
Hi everyone, my name is Gabby. I am a counselor at City College of San Francisco, and I actually work in the Transfer Center. And the Transfer Center, we specialize in helping students who want to go from the community college over to the university. So we can go ahead and get started with, why do you want to go to college? That's a great question. So going to college actually opens the door and gives you lots of opportunities for you to explore not only your identity, but your potential as well. You also get to learn a lot of practical skills. You get to meet a lot of people from around the world. And you also start on your networking, which is a great little bubble to have, because you get to learn and meet and network and possibly even find future jobs as well through that. Now, colleges and universities also offer opportunities for students to study in another country. And they call those study abroad, where you can go study for a semester or even a year in another country. And going to college also gives you the foundation to become an adult. So you learn all those skills to become an adult, and also gives you the foundation to start on your financial stability as well. Next slide, please. Now, we all know that one of the pathways to the university is from high school. You can apply from high school and go straight to the various universities. But we're here to introduce another pathway, which is you can go from high school to a community college and then to a university. I myself was one of them. I was a transfer student. I went after high school, I went to a community college, and then from the community college, I went on to the university and obtained my bachelor's degree and my master's degree as well. So guess what? There's another opportunity, is going through the community college route. Next screen, please. So let's talk about the different university options as a community college student. Like, where can you go to school? So one of them is the CSU system. The CSU stands for California State University. And there are 23 campuses throughout the state of California. The furthest north is in Humboldt, which is right near the Oregon-California border. And the furthest south is all the way in San Diego. So we have 23 campuses throughout the state. Next, we have the UC system, which is the University of California. And there are 10 campuses in that system. And if you were listening to Emmanuel, there are 9 of them where you can get your undergraduate degree from. Next, we have private universities and out of state. Now, there are private universities in the state of California. An example will be Stanford University. We also have the University of San Francisco. And there are also private universities through other states. So other states also have private universities as well. Now, if you're interested in studying out of the state of California, that's also a possibility as a community college student. You can transfer to a university in Washington, or maybe you want to go to school in Texas or New York. Those are also other doors that are available for you as a transfer student. Another option is the historically Black colleges and universities. And there are 101 campuses in that system. And they accept students from all ethnicities and all races as well. Next slide. So as a transfer student coming from a community college, you may be wondering, what's the likelihood of me getting into a university? Well, here's some data to share with you. So the California State University for the 2018-2019 school year received over 113 applications from transfer students. And they actually admitted over 26,000 students. And out of those 86,000 students, 77,000 were from a California community college. So that's a lot of students that they admitted that came from a California community colleges. So that gives you a great opportunity for you, as you can see, to go from a community college and go to a university, because universities are looking for transfer students and they want students from the community college system. Now, if we look at the UC system, you're going to notice that they received, for the 2019-2020 school year, they received over 41,000 applications from transfer students. Out of those 41,000 students, they admitted over 28,000 were transfer students, and over 26,000 students were from California community colleges. So once again, just like the CSU system, they are looking for transfer students from the community college, and it's a great opportunity as a community college to transfer to either system. Next slide, please. Now, at the California Community College system, there are a variety of different programs available for you as a student. One of them is a particular degree that we offer in the system, and it is called the Associate's Degree for Transfer. And this particular degree actually guarantees you admission to one of the California State University campuses. It also guarantees that if you earn this degree, that you can graduate from the CSU University in 2 years. Now, in order to earn this particular degree, you do have to take a particular set of courses for both your general education and for your major as well. Next, we also have a transfer program with the historically Black colleges and universities. So remember I said there was 101 campuses that are under this system? Well, 37 of them participate in a program where they can guarantee admissions to one of their campuses if you take a particular set of courses and have a particular set of units and have a certain GPA as well. Next slide, please. Now, I mentioned a minute ago about general education. You may be wondering, what is general education? So general education, it's similar to A through G from high school, where system, you're going to be taking classes in English, in math, social sciences, humanities, and the sciences as well. So there is a pattern at the community college system called IGETC, or the Intersegmental General Education Transfer Curriculum. I know it's a mouthful. We just call it IGETC for short. And it's a handout that your counselor at the community college will give to you, and it counts for both the California State University system and the UC system as well. So these classes count for both systems, and they count for all the various requirements that you need to take. So it's a great opportunity to take courses and meet your freshman, sophomore level general education courses that you normally would have to take at the university level. You can take them at the community college. Next, there is a program called the Transfer Admissions Guarantee, or TAG. And TAG actually works with the UC system. So out of the 9 campuses, there are 6 campuses that participate in this particular program. The ones that do not participate in this program is UC Berkeley, UCLA, and UC San Diego. Now, in order to be guaranteed admissions, you do have to take a certain amount of units, certain courses in general education, remember that GETC I was talking about a minute ago, and also certain courses in your major. Students are also required to meet a certain GPA, and there are deadlines by when all of this has to happen. So this is why it's important to meet with a counselor, because they will guide you and help you set up so that you meet all the requirements. Next, we have something called a transfer pathway. Now, the transfer pathway is a single set of courses that you can take in your major that count for all 9 campuses. There are 20 majors that participate in this program, so not all majors have this particular pathway. But if your major is one of the ones that we have a pathway with, it's a great program to follow so that you meet the major requirements for the various UC campuses. Next, I'm going to turn it over to Jackie, and she's going to talk to you about admissions requirements.
Sorry, I muted myself. Thank you, Gabby. There was a question on the Q&A that asked if CSU campuses offer like tag program, and the answer is no. The tag program is only available to UC campuses, and only with the six UC campuses that Gabby just mentioned earlier. But right now we're going to go ahead and go over the transfer admission requirement for both the UC system and the CSU system. Gabby and I put these requirements side by side so that it's easier for you to review it and compare the differences. There's a lot of similarities, but there's also a few differences, right? So the first similarity is the 60 units required. The key word here is that the 60 units that you have to have done need to be CSU or UC transferable. So make sure you use assist.org to determine that. And we don't expect that you know all these things. So that's why, again, it's really important that you create that relationship with your counselor when you're at your community college, so that they can guide you and give you all the feedback, and serves as a second set of eyes, just kind of like letting you know what would work and what wouldn't work. Regardless if you're applying to UC or CSU, you have to have that 60 units requirement. The tip that I would give you is to make sure to take classes that qualify for both. You know, you can look at the school catalog, the course catalog, and it will indicate that. For CSU system, they require a minimum requirement of 2.0 GPA, while UC campuses require a minimum of 2.4 GPA. The one thing I like to note that the minimum requirement GPA is not going to guarantee you an acceptance. Like you're not going to get admitted with a minimum requirement met. You want to be competitive. You want to make sure that you do the best that you can and get the highest grade possible. For the CSU system, they have this terminology called Golden 4. And what that is it refers to the 4 courses that you have to take in order to meet the requirement for CSU admission, which is the oral communication, the English, the 2 English classes, and the 1 math. Similarly to CSU, UC also have something like that. We have what we call a 7 course pattern. It's a little bit more. But what it is that we require 2 English, just like CSU. We require math, just like CSU. And on top of that, we require 4 courses that you can take from any of the areas, such as art and humanity. It could be in the science area. It can also be in the social science area. Okay. The last part is major preparation. I think as a transfer student, I think this is the most important part. You need to figure out sooner than later, you know, what you're going to major in. Taking the right classes for your major preparation is vital to your transfer success. So it's really, really important that you figure out what major you're going to apply to and what university you're applying to, and then start doing your research early on. Next slide, please. Okay. All right, so if you choose to attend a California community college, keep these tips in mind. We recommend that you meet with your counselor often, get to know them. We want you to research and decide on a major. You know, like I said earlier, pick a major quickly, you know, make sure you know more about the major. You can talk to your counselor about it and they can kind of walk you through what you can do with that particular major. You can search it up online as well. You can Google search it. When you meet with your counselor, you can create an educational plan. And what that is it kind of help you track all of your requirement and progress. Don't be shy or afraid to ask questions. Like, we're here to help you. So make sure you ask those questions. Make sure you read and you research. At every community college, there is a transfer center. So please visit them. Like, their main job is to help you and guide you through a successful transfer process. That's what Gabby and I, how I met Gabby is through the transfer center. As a transfer applicant, I would say that your grades and your major preparation coursework are the most important factors. So pay attention to that when you are applying. Next, please. Okay, who loves checklists in here? I do. If you are bored and have nothing to do, you can follow these quick checklists. I know the PowerPoint is going to be available on the website, but feel free to follow these steps. So as a senior, I would say from September to December, you can do your research. And if you are thinking about a local community college that you're going to apply to, make sure you research that campus. You know, look at their student handbook, look at their catalog, look at their course descriptions, look at their handbook so that you know your rights. Between January to April, I would say, you know, apply to FAFSA so that you can get free aid to go to the community colleges. You can also apply to CC by checking out the cccapply.org website. You can research your top 3 institutions that you want to transfer to. I would say that organization is key. So make sure when you're researching these organizations, you can create a database. That's just fancy for creating a Google Excel sheet and put everything in there that you can refer back to. And then between April to August, you want to maybe check out the school and see if they have any summer classes. You can start taking summer classes right after you graduate. Register for class and then meet with a counselor early on. And then share your top 3 institutions with your counselor so they know how to guide you. Next, please. Here's just a list of resources for you. If you have any questions, we will be here to answer them. And remember, we are here to help you. So please ask questions if you have any. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jackie and Gabriela. Start my video. Sorry. Karen, are there any questions that were asked through the Q&A?
We had a lot of people participating in great questions. I think one that is going to be a little different for each school is asking about the course catalogs and what majors to take for specific, you know, if the one here was for nursing, what major should I take if I'm interested in nursing? And I went ahead and said that not all schools offer nursing as a major, so it is important to do research in there. Sometimes it's pre-nursing or a healthcare track, but if you two as the experts could speak as to what should you take if a certain major isn't available at your school of choice.
I think I'll get started. So it is like you were saying, it's very important to see what schools have the nursing. So if you are interested in transferring to a university that has a nursing program, that's where you want to work with the counselor so they can tell you all the different options that there are for nursing. So for example, if you're interested in the CSU system, UC or private, they'll be able to tell you which schools you can apply to and what are the courses that you need for that particular major. Obviously for nursing, you're going to be taking a variety of different science classes like anatomy and physiology, but for each particular major, there is a set of courses that you will have to take, and that's where a counselor comes in very handy to help you figure all of that piece out so that you're not on your own. You have someone to guide you through that whole process.
Yeah, I can add to that too. UC Davis, this is a really popular question for UC Davis every time I'm at the transfer day. Student always asks if we have a nursing program, and we don't for undergrad, but we do have a lot of pre-health. So when you are searching for majors, be open to other majors. Think about end goal. What is it that you're trying to get done at the end, right? Long term. So all of the majors are supposed to be vehicles to get you to that destination, to that job, to that whatever that end goal that you're trying to get to. So don't think of it as like, well, I want to be a nurse. So the only option I have is to be a nursing major. That's not always the case. I have a lot of students who are nurses that go into clinical nutrition majors at UC Davis. We also have a lot of students that go into nutrition science. We have students that go into human development that want to go into nursing. So there are a lot of different majors that can still get you to that destination. Just look at the curriculum of what that major will provide to you. And then from there, you can look further to see, how that's going to get you to that final destination.
I was going to mention there is a website called assist.org that I know Jackie mentioned, assist.org. And they actually have a tool on that website where you can search various UCs and CSU campuses for majors. And it gives you a list of which schools have particular majors. So that's a great tool to use as well.
Another question is, even if the UC that I'm applying to doesn't accept TAG, which is Transfer Admission Guaranteed, can I still apply to them when I'm at a community college?
So if the school does not have TAG, you can actually apply as a regular, for regular admissions is what you can do. So TAG, sometimes students use TAG as maybe it's their dream school they want to go to, their top school, or sometimes it's a backup school to the school that they want to go. So we get a lot of students in the transfer center who want to go to UCLA or UC Berkeley. So they'll apply to those schools as part of their regular admissions in November, but then they may tag to another campus as a backup school.
I want to add that TAG application is more of a contract. It's not really like an admission application. You still have to do a UC application even though you apply your TAG. So you can apply, you can do a TAG for a school that you want, but let's say if you want to go to UC Berkeley that don't participate in the TAG, you can still apply to that UC application. And then at the end, by March and April, when you find out whether you're accepted or not, getting multiple offers of your acceptance is a great option, right? So until then, you will have to make a decision. But right now, you don't have to do that. So just apply widely. Don't just apply to the one school that you want to go to. Keep yourself open and then decide that at the end.
Thank you for that. Another specific question we have quite a bit of time, so I just want to field this out in case anybody else is in a similar boat, is what should I major in if I want to, in the future, take the MCAT and go to medical school? Is one major better than another? For example, is integrated bio better than general bio?
That's a really good question. I get that all the time too, because UC Davis do offer a variety of different biology related majors. We have like a few in our College of Ags, and we have 9 in our College of Biological Sciences. And a lot of students, like if your end goal is to go into medical school, What you need to worry about is looking at the curriculum of the major that have a strong background in the foundation of bio, chem, and math, right? So as long as you have that foundation down, then it's going to prepare you for the MCAT and whatever is coming next, rather than looking at it as oh, is this major going to be better than the other major? As long as the foundation coursework, the requirement, the curriculum is preparing you for that long-term goal, then I think that should be fine. So to answer your question, all of our major for the biology related at Davis are all kind of like the same because they're all taking the same foundation classes.
We have Jamie that put in a question saying, Jaime, sorry, specifically, when do you apply or sign up for TAG when you are admitted to a community college? So looking for a time.
I can answer this question. So the TAG, there are a lot of criteria, okay? And the TAG requirement, it varies from one campus to another campus. Even though we have 6 different UC campuses that participate in the TAG program, each of them have different criteria, and the criteria change every year as well. Not significantly, but they do change every year. So one of the criteria is that you have to have at least 30 UC completed UC transferable units. And so usually students apply for the TAG the year before they plan to enroll or plan to start school. So let's say if you're let's say right now you're a transfer student. This is your second year. You're a sophomore. This is your second year. This is the time that you apply, because if you have at least 30 units completed, and you will have 60 units by the spring semester, then you meet the eligibility to do the TAG. With the caveat that, you have to look at the majors requirements, right? Like there are some majors that are impacted or selective that you want to keep an eye on. So as long as you meet all of the criteria, then you can go ahead and do that. But it's usually the second year after you start community college at your community college. Due in September.
So this next question might be answered later on when we are in the private school process, but from your perspective, is transferring from a community college to out of state or private universities more difficult or harder?
That's a good question. It really depends what the criteria is going to be. So a school like Stanford University, their standards are really high. So it may be, quote, more difficult to get in, for example, and they only admit a very small population of transfer students. But then there's other schools that their requirements are not as strict or hard as maybe Stanford University, that you can get in from to a private university or college or even out of state. So that's where it's important to work with the counselor, and we can find out what are the specific courses you need and what is the GPA. Now, if you have all the courses and the GPA, then that puts you in good standing and to be a competitive applicant as well. But I think it's something, especially for the California community, for the California private colleges and universities, we will be having a presentation next about that. So that's a good question that, may be covered.
I just want to encourage everyone that if they have any questions for community college or for your transfer routes, to put them in the chat. Sorry, in the question and answer section now, since you have 2 experts here on our screens being able to answer them. We got another question saying, which CSU or UC offers courses that will lead me to being a nutritionist? And I just want to echo what Jackie said prior to one of the other questions of, there are many different avenues to reach your destination. So just being open to those different ones would be a great way. I think there was some confusion about the assist.org website. So if you could, again, just tell us what that is mainly used for.
I can try to explain that. Assist.org is it's like a hub that all of the CSU, UCs, and CCC, California Community College, throw all of our information in there. It's like a one-stop shop. So it's really good for a student who plan to do like go into the community college route, because they have articulation agreements that it's also available on assist.org. Another thing for you to use Assist for is to determine whether the course you're taking is UC transferable or CSU transferable. So when you go to assist.org, you just have to put in the term that you're taking classes, and then you put in the school that you're at, and then on the bottom of that you can click on the drop down menu, and you can change different criteria, like finding out what courses are considered CSU transferable and then what courses are considered UC transferable, because there are different one in that. Another one that I would use is probably articulation, just to make sure that I'm taking the right classes for my major. And every course at your community college may do a formal agreement differently at another community or at another CSU or UC. So you always want to make sure you check Assist for articulation agreement. That's what I use it for. I think students use it for like GE Breath as well. Mostly for CSU campuses. What else do you use it for, Gabby?
We also use it for exploring majors as well. So I know a student had a question about, which UC or CSU has nutrition as a major. So we would use assist.org, for example, and they have a tool where we can explore what campuses have that particular major as well.
Another question in the chat here is, what are some of the benefits to choosing this path instead of going straight to a UC?
Great question. I know one of them is money. It's a lot cheaper going to a community college. Now, for example, for City College, we have Free City, where it is free tuition for San Francisco residents. Now you still have to pay a couple of other fees in your books, but tuition for individual classes are free for San Francisco residents. So tuition and money is one big component. You can also fulfill your freshman, sophomore level courses that you normally would do at the CSU or UC system. You can take those at the community college system as well. And then I think the other option is, if you're unsure of what major you're interested in, or you want to explore different, avenues in terms of majors that are out there, that's a great opportunity also to attend a community college as you're figuring things out. And then once you know exactly where you want to go or your major, then, you can then transfer and but at the same time, fulfill all the requirements that you normally would have taken at the university during your freshman and sophomore years.
Awesome. We'll take this last question here that has a lot of parts in it. It says, how can we authenticate that we got our credits, which are transferable? I'm currently a junior, and I want to make sure that my credits haven't disappeared when I apply in the future. So if you could go over what authentication is first.
So I would say our Assist will have that. So depending on what term that you're taking the classes, Assist goes all the way to like 1980 something. 1980 something. Yeah, that's when I was born. So it goes all the way back. So I'm sure whenever you're taking your classes, there should be a catalog option. When you click on assist.org, the very first thing you're gonna see is the catalog year. So if you move that catalog year to whenever you took it, and then from there we will put in your community college, and then we will look at whether UC or CSU transferable, and then we will run the report, and that's how we kind of verify whether that course is recognized as UC transferable or not, or CSU transferable or not.
So we still have 3 minutes, so we'll take these last couple questions here. It says, sorry if this was talked about already, but do we decide the college we're transferring to once we decide we're doing tag, or do we decide during our freshman year of college?
Question.
That might change because like I mentioned to you, what you decide and what you're planning for your freshman year might change the following year. Because the tag criteria do change based on what our faculty member at our school determined for that particular department, for that major. So it does change. Like, for example, I'll give you an example at UC Davis this year. Last year for the tag for computer science and engineering, it was 3.3 for tag. And for this year, overall GPA was increased to 3.5. So that tag change definitely changed that year, this coming year. So it's really important that you look at the school. There is a tag matrix that the UC system used that it kind of like a one-stop shop. So I would highly suggest you take a look at that. But like I said, I think we're not expecting you to know what the criterias are because it does change. And that's why it's really important that you meet with your transfer center counselors, as well as the UC rep of the school that you're interested in.
Thank you so much, Jackie and Gabriela. There were a few questions that came in straggling that we'll answer in the chat there, but I just wanted to appreciate both of you for sharing your expertise in this field.
Oh, thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
So earlier there was the question of, next slide, please. Earlier, there was the question of what is the benefit of going this route instead of going straight to a UC? And I just want to remind everybody that this is not a college and academia is not a linear process. So two exact same students that have the exact same GPA have taken the same classes, their route and their success is going to look different, and they're going to decide what is best for them. So that being said, we are going to transition now to our USF Educational Talent Search Advisor that we have. We have Gracie, and I'm going to try this, but Anguiano, is that how you say that? Perfect. I'm going to hand it over to Gracie now.
Thank you, Karen. That you got it on the first try. I'm super impressed. So thank you both, Karen and Emmanuel, for having me today. I also really appreciate Jackie and Gabriela's presentation. I was a transfer student. I got my tag to Davis and eventually chose to go to Berkeley for my undergrad. So I promise you the transfer system works. Another system that really works if you're not interested in going straight to the UC or the CSU, you can do a private school. And so I'm here to talk to you today about applying to a private school. So next slide, thank you. One more slide, thank you. So what I'm going to talk to you today about, this is a general overview. So I'm going to do an overview of the private school system. There are so many different types of private schools, so it's going to be kind of hard to put it all in one slide, but I'm going to do my best to give you a general overview. And then I'm going to talk to you about why you might want to go to a private school over a UC CSU. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the general admissions requirements for private schools. Again, there are so many different private schools, so many different requirements. So I'm going to try to give you the most condensed version of what you need to apply. I'm going to go over some key terms that you need to know if you're thinking about applying to a private school. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the essay questions, and I'm super glad that Emmanuel was able to talk to you about the PIQs, and I'll tell you, you'll see why in a minute. Or in a few minutes. And then I'm gonna give you kind of a run through of the Common App. The Common App is kind of the application that you'll be using to apply to private schools. And it can be a little bit confusing, so I'm gonna give you kind of an overview of that. Then I'm gonna finish off with some key tips for applying to private schools, and then we'll end with question and answer. Next slide, please. So as promised, a very general overview of private schools. So there are over 100 private schools in California alone. On the Common App application, you have like 909 private schools that you can apply to. So there are a lot of private schools. And the reason why nonprofit is bolded here is because I wanted to highlight the fact that there are for-profit private schools, which I am not talking about today. We are highlighting today the nonprofit private schools, and I'll kind of give you a run through of what those are. So kind of the categories of the nonprofit private schools are first the liberal arts colleges. These focus on kind of a broad base of curriculum. So you'll be taking humanities courses, you'll be taking science courses. So it's kind of a really general kind of, think of it like a A through G version of a college. And so we have liberal arts colleges. Some examples are Pomona and Occidental. Those are both down near Southern California. We have Catholic private colleges or universities. One example, Karen mentioned Stanford. I'm highlighted here, University of San Francisco and Holy Names University. Sorry, Stanford is not a Catholic school, but University of San Francisco and Holy Names are. Then you have kind of fine arts colleges. These are colleges that specialize in the arts. Then we have the specialized population private schools. These are like the gendered schools like Mills College, where they only accept female identifying people to go to their undergraduate programs. And we have schools like the HBCU, which were mentioned earlier, like Howard and Morehouse. And something that I do want to point out here is that for the HBCUs, like Gabriela said earlier, you don't have to be Black identifying in order to go to an HBCU. It's just kind of, that's what the target population is for the school. An additional kind of category is the research private school. And so I highlighted Stanford here, though I do want to mention that a private school can be multiple of these categories. So Stanford, for instance, does call itself a liberal arts college, and it is a liberal arts college, but it's also known for its kind of bigger research projects. Another example, if we're thinking about out of state, would be something like Johns Hopkins or Yale. So all these are really big research universities, also liberal arts colleges. What I wanted to highlight here also in the overview section for private schools is the fact that admissions requirements, minimum GPA, and the deadlines for applying to all of these colleges are gonna vary broadly. So there is no one deadline that I can give you. There is no one minimum GPA that I can give you. It depends on the college that you're gonna apply to. So you need to do your research, like Jackie was mentioning. Another thing that I wanted to mention is that if you're going to apply to schools out of the state, even if they're public schools, I would generally kind of lump those into a private school category, not because they're private schools, but because their deadlines are going to vary, their minimum GPAs are going to vary. It's not going to kind of follow the UC, CSU requirements. So you will have to do additional research for those, just like you would for a private school. Next slide, please. So I wanted to highlight why you might want to go to a private school. The very first reason is financial aid. Private schools are often funded by private funding sources. They're funded by big grants. They're funded by endowments by their alumni. And so they have, generally, if it's a kind of a bigger private school, they have a lot of extra money laying around. And so you might get a really good financial aid package if you are going to a private school. And in some cases, you might even get a full ride. I know Stanford, if your parents make less than, I think, 60,000 or 80,000, I don't know what the number is, but if your parents make less than that, or guardians make less than that, then you get a full ride at Stanford. Same at Yale, I know. And so financial aid is a really big reason why you might want to go to a private school. Another reason is kind of the alumni networks. So private schools are kind of really tight-knit communities. If I went to a private school, I would have like a really close affiliation with anyone else who went to that same private school, and that's kind of how the private school network works. So after you graduate, you have kind of this built-in network just because you went to that private school. Also, the third reason why you might want to go is kind of generally private schools, the class sizes are a lot smaller. If you're going to go to a UC, I went to UC Berkeley and we had like huge 300 seat lecture halls, and you will more than likely not see that at some private schools. So, and I say more than likely because there are some private schools that are really huge, but for the most part, they're generally smaller populations. Another reason why you might want to go to a private school is because they're a little bit more niche. So again, if you, for instance, are really interested in the arts, you might want to go to an art specific school. Or if you are really interested in being with Black identifying folks, then you might want to go to HBCU and have that kind of culture kind of built into your school. And so that's another reason why you might want to go to a private. Next slide, please. So now I want to talk to you a little bit about the admissions requirements. I did say that because private schools vary so broadly, I can't give you like a definitive list of all of the things that are required for all of the different private schools. But in general, this is kind of what the private school process and application requirements look like. So you do have to do your A through Gs. Most private schools, especially liberal arts and research institutions, are really focused on A through Gs, just like this UC-CSU system. All right, SAT, ACT, that's kind of a touchy subject right now because of COVID. Before COVID, some schools were already starting to not use the SAT, ACT scores. Now that COVID has kind of taken over our SAT, ACT testing, there are more colleges that are pulling that requirement, though because these are private schools, they all have the right to do whatever they want. There may be some private schools that are still requiring an SAT, ACT score. So it's going to be really important that you are doing your research and seeing which schools are still requiring that. Then you have letters of rec. Most, if not all, private schools will ask you for letters of recommendation. I put a note here that you want at least 2 and get the strongest recommenders you possibly can. If possible, get a counselor and an academic teacher, or a teacher who can speak to your strengths.
I wanted to just let you know that there was an actual specific question about that. And it said, for a lot of competitive private schools, they require a counselor recommendation. But what if the student does not have the best relationship with that counselor? Is it okay to have somebody else fill in? Or is there a different grade level guidance counselor that could step in?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So if the school is requiring a counselor to submit a letter of recommendation for you, unfortunately, you do have to have that counselor submit a letter of rec. However, I will submit to you, if the school has 2 counselors and you have a better relationship with one of them, then that counselor can submit on your behalf. Some schools are requiring that it is your school counselor. And so in that case, you have to go with what you have. If the school counselor is not required, then I would say go with whoever's going to give you the strongest letter of recommendation. I hope that answers the question. So the next thing is obviously your application. So you actually have to do the application, which I'm going to take you through in a little bit. And then this is a piece that is not common for UCs and CSUs, or the community college system for that matter, the interview. Most kind of big name private schools will ask you to do an interview for their college, and it is part of the application process. You may be thinking like, what if I'm applying to Johns Hopkins in the East Coast? Like, how am I going to do that interview? Well, now we have Zoom, but also they have alumni who live in your area, or admissions kind of officers who live in your area who will do that interview with you kind of locally. Next slide, please. So key terms that you absolutely need to know if you're applying to private schools. First, early decision and early action. So early decision and early action these are processes that you can go through to apply to a private school early and get admitted early. So both applications are kind of due in November, I think generally like November 1st or like the first 2 weeks of November. And then the admissions decisions are given to you as early as December. Now, there are some key differences between early decision and early action. I'm about to tell you what they are. So for early decision, you can only apply for one. So if you are applying to early decision, you have made a contract with that school and you are saying, if Stanford, if you accept me, I am going to your school. There are no ifs, ands, or buts. If you accept me, this is a commitment I am making. So with early decision, you apply to one school and it is a binding contract that you are going to go to that school if they admit you. That means you have to withdraw all your other applications. In contrast, with early action, you still get to apply early. You still get to get that kind of early deadline, that early admissions notice, but it is non-binding, which means you can apply to multiple schools for early action and just kind of play the field and see whatever comes back, and you don't have to commit to that school until April. The kind of third category of decision is the regular decision. So if you are applying under regular decision, you're going to apply with all the other general applicants for the regular decision timeline. You're going to generally apply, again, private schools, the applications vary broadly, but sometime in the first semester, if not early January, is when you apply for early decision. And then you'll find out sometime from February to May-ish, whether or not you got into that private school. And again, I say very generally because all of these kind of timelines are going to vary tremendously depending on what private schools you're applying to. But the gist of it is regular decision, you're applying with the general population, you'll find out with the general population, and you'll kind of follow the regular timeline. Next slide.
A few questions about these terms.
Okay.
So we have the question of what are the benefits of early decision? And does early application or early action give you a higher chance of getting in?
That's a really good, those are both really good questions. So for early decision, the key there is if you know your number one school and you are set on your number one school, and if you get admitted to that, no matter what, no other college could even come close to Stanford, for instance. It hurts my heart to say that because I went to Cal. But if that is a school that you have in mind and you're like, that is my number one, that is the reason why you might want to apply to early decision. In addition to that, you're applying with a much smaller pool of students. So when you commit to that school and you're saying, I am serious about you, if you are serious about me, you're applying with a very small kind of pool of other students. Reason why you might want to do early action. I'm sorry, can you repeat the second question about early action?
Yes, I can.
Thank you.
Does doing or selecting to do early action give you a higher chance of getting accepted?
Okay, thank you. So yeah, like I was just talking about earlier with the early decision, since you are applying early, you're not applying with the general kind of population that is applying for the school. So that in itself will give you a little bit of an advantage, but if you're not qualified, you're not qualified. But the gist of it is that that's kind of the advantage of applying to early action, is that you'll have kind of a smaller pool that you're, I guess, competing against, but I don't want to use that word, but I am. We're going to go on to the next slide. Thank you. All right, so the essay questions, and I did say I was going to go kind of broadly on the essay questions, but what you need to know is that there is a personal essay for the Common App. Not all colleges require this, and I'm going to show you how to tell which colleges require it, which colleges don't. But not all colleges require it. Even though not all colleges require it, you can still submit it if you want. So if there's a school that's not requiring it, you can still submit it to them just as an additional, like, hey, look at my app. I'm amazing. So my recommendation is to do it. You don't have to, obviously, not required. The next thing you need to know is that there are 7 prompts. You choose one of the 7. And the word limit is 250 to 650 words. And I want to highlight, just like Emmanuel said with the PIQ questions, 650 is the limit, that is the max. That doesn't mean that that has to be your goal. We are looking really for quality, not quantity, not number of words, but how meaningful those words are. Another thing you should know about the essays is that there are additional essay questions. So I know I lured you in by saying there's only one essay question. That's partially true. The other part is that for, firstly, if you have ever kind of had any disciplinary action at your school, you will have to explain that. It's going to plainly ask you, have you ever had disciplinary action? And then if you say yes, you have to explain what happened, why, etc. So that is an additional essay. If you say no to disciplinary action, then you don't have to answer that. There is an additional information or additional comment section, just like there is with the UC PIQs. Sorry, not a PIQ, but the UC also has this additional space. So for private schools, there is this additional space that you can use. It is optional. What I say about optional is if it's optional, then I want to use that opportunity. For college specific questions, and I'll show you this in a few slides, but when you are applying on the Common App, there is a section for each of the colleges that you're applying to, and some of the colleges might have additional questions that they want you to answer. And so I'll show you where to find that also. Next slide, please. There's a lot of text on this slide, and this is kind of the cardinal sin of presentations. Do not put a lot of words on a slide, but what I wanted to show you, or what I wanted to highlight here, is that there are some commonalities between the UC essays and the Common App essays. So both essays are going to ask you a question about talents. There are some questions in common about challenges. There are some questions in common about solving a problem. There's a question on the Common App about like a topic of your choice. So what I wanted to highlight here is that there are some commonalities, and I want to point out and really emphasize that you should never just copy and paste your UC essays onto your Common App. Don't do that. Please don't do that. But you can use your UC PIQs to help you kind of figure out what you can write about on the Common App. You can tweak that essay. Sorry, not essay. Emmanuel said it's not an essay. You can tweak that. I don't know. I'm going to call it an essay because I forgot what Emmanuel said. But you can tweak your UC PIQ to fit the Common App, but make sure that you are actually putting time to fit that. Next slide, please. Now I'm going to actually take you through the Common App. So next slide, please. Kind of generally, these are the steps for the Common App. If you are doing the Common Application, this is where you're gonna kind of get the run through of how to do that. So we have, first you have to gather your materials, and this is true for UC, CSU, and private schools alike. You have to gather your materials, make sure you have your transcript handy, make sure you have your parent information handy, parent, guardian, make sure you have your like achievements and your awards all in one place so that when you're doing your application, it's all in one place and you don't have to like go and search for it while you're doing that. Next, you're going to create your account. I'm going to show you how to do that for the Common App. After that, you're going to add your colleges, which I'm also going to show you. Then you're going to start your actual application, which I'm going to show you. Then for the private schools, for the Common App specifically, you have to do a FERPA waiver. I'm going to show you where to find that. Then you have to add your supporters. These are your recommenders. Then you have to write your essays, although you should be writing your essays now, kind of drafting them now. Emmanuel said that with the PIQs, it's really important to draft them again, and then draft them one more time, and maybe 3 more times after that. But it's the same thing with the Common App. So it says write your essays as like the, 6th step, but make sure that you're doing it before, like you're doing it now. Last thing, you're reviewing and then you're submitting your application and you're done. kind of, because you still have to monitor your portals. Talk about that. So now let's take you through the actual common application. Next slide, please. So the first thing I wanted to highlight for you is this really handy resource that is right on the front page of the Common App. It is the Find a College link. Next slide, please. So under this link here, you're able to explore all of the private schools that are under the Common App. You will click on the school that you are interested in applying to or looking at, and it'll give you a full profile on that school. It'll tell you what the requirements are, what the deadlines are, all of that in one place. So it's really handy. You can use it at your leisure. Next slide, please. The next thing I wanted to show you, again, this is right on the front page of the Common Application, is the under Apply to Colleges, there's a drop down that says, it's really small, so I have to get really close up. First time applicant guide. Next slide, please. So what this guide is literally just what it sounds like. It's a guide of how to do your Common Application step by step. And what's really cool about this link is that it even has videos that shows you step by step how to do it. So it's also a really amazing resource. So if I'm going too fast for you right now, you always have this backup resource in addition to the recording that they're going to send out. Next slide, please. So next, we're going to create our account. So you have two options here. You can either click Create Account, or you can do the Apply Now. And when you click that, next slide, please, you'll see this, the form on the left. And so you will always, if you are applying straight out of high school, you will click First Year Student. That's your link, First Year Student. When you click that, it's going to take you to the next Create Your Account page, and that's going to ask you for general create account information like your email, your username, that kind of stuff. One thing I did want to point out and highlight here is that it asks for your first given name. Please make sure that you are using your government name, your name that's on your birth certificate, name that's on your school records. Don't use your nickname or what people call you by. Make sure that you are actually using your government legal name. Next slide, please. So once you create your account, you're going to log into the dashboard. This is what it looks like when you log into the dashboard. And right now you have no colleges in your dashboard. That's because you haven't added colleges. So I'm going to show you how to do that in a few slides, but I wanted to show you, next slide, please, the actual Common App. So this is the kind of place where you're going to put in all your basic application questions. You're going to talk about kind of your general profile, your name, your birth date, all that kind of stuff, your social security number if you have one. You're going to talk about your family. So it's going to ask you questions about your parents. Remember, I told you to gather your parents' documents as well. Yeah, this is where you're going to put it in. You're going to give a rundown of your education. Where did you go to school? You're going to put in your test scores if you have them, SAT, ACT. Again, you have to be really careful about which schools are not versus which schools are still accepting SAT, ACT scores. But if you have them, you put them in here. There's an activity section. There's a writing section. Next slide, please. So under the writing section, this is that 1 out of 7 that I was telling you about earlier. This is the one that you choose. So next slide, please. What I wanted to show you here is that there are these two kind of boxes, and one of them says required and one of them says non-required. Remember I told you that the schools that are required, you'll be able to clearly see that. So if the schools on your school list, on your colleges, require you to submit this writing prompt, it's going to clearly state it here. So in my example, I added University of San Francisco as a college that I'm applying to. So USF does require a writing prompt, which means I have to do it. If none of my schools required it and they're all over on the other side that says not required, then that means it's optional for me to do, though. Remember what I said about optional. Take that opportunity. Next slide, please. So I've been talking to you about adding colleges. Here's where I talk to you about how you actually do that. So you're gonna go to this tab, the college search. And when you start entering the search, next slide, please, what you will see is that as you start typing the name of the school, the list of colleges is gonna get smaller and smaller until it finds the college that you're looking for. Next slide, please. Once you find the college that you're looking for, you click on that plus button and it'll add the college for you. Next slide, please. Once you add the college, it'll go onto your My Colleges tab. So now you have colleges in your tab because you just added them, right? Next slide, please. Something to note is that all the colleges that you add under the college search section are going to show up in this section here that's highlighted with the arrow. So all of the schools are going to kind of populate here, one on top of the other. In my case, I only added USF, but if I had 5 schools, they would all be listed right here, one on top of another. Next slide, please. So once you actually click on that college, you will see a profile of the college. Next slide, please. And this profile will give you information about the early action, early decision, regular decision deadlines. So this is a really important place to look so that you're not missing those deadlines. If you're applying for a spring, then you can just put it under the spring. Sorry, you can just look at the spring 2021 and it'll tell you the deadline for that as well. Next slide, please. So right under the college information, we have the additional questions slide. Remember back when I was talking to you about essays that I told you some colleges do require additional questions or additional essays. This is where it's going to show up. So if I had multiple schools, they'll all be listed under where it says USF, but not all schools are going to have the same supplemental questions. So this is where you'll look to see what questions are required for that specific school. These are the questions that are required for USF. We're going to go to the next slide, please. So I also talked to you about FERPA. If you don't know what FERPA is, it's the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act. So this is the law that protects you as a student and makes it so that nobody can share any information regarding your education to anybody unless you give consent to do so. So for the Common App, this is something that's unique to the Common App, is that you have to do a FERPA waiver. For the UCs and CSUs, it's just like a button that you click and you're done. For the Common Application, you have to actually do a waiver. So next slide, please. You're going to click on this button, which is really tiny, complete release authorization, and then you're going to have this waiver pop up. When the waiver pops up, you have to click through it, say, yes, I acknowledge that FERPA is a thing and that I need to give my permission. And then you're going to select whether or not you relinquish your rights to see any kind of forms that are submitted on your behalf or not. Something to note here is that some colleges, some recommenders will not recommend you if they know that you're going to see their recommendation. So make sure you're talking to your recommenders and that they know that you have kind of a consensus and they know that you waived your right or that you didn't waive your right. Just kind of an additional tip. Then you authorize, put your name in, put the current date, and you're done with the FERPA waiver. Now that you're done with the FERPA waiver, you can add, next slide, please, recommenders. So what recommenders you can add, again, some colleges do require a counselor, a school counselor. This is where you'll insert the school counselor invitation. So you click on that button and it'll take you to another link where it asks you for the recommenders information, their email, their name, their number, where they work, etc. Same for whatever teacher is going to be recommending you. And then there's, if you keep scrolling down, there's like a advisor that you can add or other recommenders if you want. So you can just go ahead and add recommenders as you please. Next slide, please. So under the FERPA and recommenders section, you'll see the review and submit Common App. I didn't actually fill out the entire common application. So you'll see that there's a whole list of things that I haven't completed. If I were to actually submit this application, then I'll go back and I'll click on all of these and I'll actually complete them as needed. But if you complete the application, if you go through all these steps that I just went through with you, this should be empty and you should have a link to click so that you can go and review your application. It pops up as a PDF so you can review everything that you put down for that school. And then you just submit your application and you're done. Next slide, please. I was gonna get a time check, but I'm gonna just roll through it. So tips for applying to private schools. First off, think about your priorities. Because there are so many private schools and there's just so many factors to consider, think about those priorities now. Does the size of the school matter to you? Does the location matter to you? Do you want to be close? Do you want to be far? Do you want to be as far away as possible? Does the area of study matter to you? We were talking earlier during the transfer presentation about, like, if a school doesn't offer nursing, like, is that really important to you? So kind of figure that out for yourself. And if you don't know how to start to think about those things, you can use the College Board Big Future. This is a really amazing resource for students. It's free, it's through the College Board. You go to College Board Big Future and then you go to finding your college fit. And then this will kind of take you through each of those questions, like, how important is size to you? How important is location? So it'll take you through all of these and then it'll kind of give you a list of colleges that fit your needs or your wants. The next thing I want to reiterate, just like the presenters earlier were talking about, you have to do your research. There are so many different deadlines, so many different colleges, so many different programs to study. You have to do research, especially if you're going to go to a private school or you're thinking about going to a private school, because none of it is kind of this standardized thing. All of it is tailored to that specific school with private schools. One resource that I have for you is an application tracker. One of the, I believe Jackie or maybe Gabriela was talking about kind of keeping track of all of these different things and doing your research and being organized. This is a way that you can be organized. I created this application tracker. If you scan that QR code, open up your app, it'll take you to directly to make a copy of that tracker so that you can keep track of all of these things together. What is the deadline for all of the schools? What are your portals? What is your password for those portals, etc. So it's all kind of like in one place and it's yours. So I don't own it. Once you make a copy of it, it's absolutely yours. The next thing I wanted to submit to you as something that you should be doing is to do virtual tours. I know right now we're not able to kind of physically go to schools, but there are virtual tours available. Most schools have them. You can do YouVisit, you can do YouTube 360. There are a few other sites that you can go to look directly at the campus and kind of get a lay of the land. Another thing is that a lot of schools right now are offering virtual visits. So these are kind of like webinars, but for specific schools. So if you are really interested in a school, look them up and see if they have a virtual visit so you can attend that webinar, learn more about the school, learn more about the programs available, and hopefully get a better sense of the school. Next slide, please. And we're done. I hope with enough time.
So I do have a couple questions that were circulating earlier about the early decision. So just wanted to go back and reiterate some of those. One of them is more standalone. It says, if you apply early action or early decision, will it be on the Common App or on the university's own website or domain?
Yeah, all of the early action, early decision, those will all be through the Common App. And if there is, just an additional note, if there's a private school that's not on the Common App, that's because you have to go directly to the school to apply through their own website.
And then these two are more related. If I apply with early decision, am I still allowed to apply to other colleges? Another submitted question was, for example, for Columbia University, they do offer early decision. So to apply early decision, must I retract all other colleges, even though those were my backups?
Yeah, really good question. Really good clarifying question. You will have to retract all other applications if you get admitted. So you apply early decision, you get early decision, you get that decision in December. Once you find out you were admitted to your number one early decision school, you have to retract all the others, but you don't retract them until you get your admissions. Really important question.
There was a question about, and you kind of already answered it, about are all universities that are private on the Common App? So I just wanted from the expert how you would tackle that question.
Yeah, I mean, most private schools will be on the Common App because, I mean, the Common App is the place to be for private schools, to have it all in one shop. But if there is a school that you know about that you really want to apply to that's not on the Common App, that's because you have to go directly to their website to do their application.
And then a lot of the students and families that we serve are low socioeconomic backgrounds or low income. Are there ways for them to find resources for how to pay those Common App fees for their specific schools? So the question was, what are the, I didn't pull it up, what are the specific fees for CSU, UC, and privates? And just to let everyone know, for the CSU and UC, it does show you on there with your income and whatever wages or salary, annual income that you put in, whether or not you're eligible. But for private schools, what is that process?
Yeah, also a really good question. So when you are looking at the Common App and you're looking at the school profile, if you scroll down on the school profile, it'll show you what the application fee is, and it's pretty upfront for all schools. You'll be able to see exactly how much it'll cost you to apply to that school. There are resources to help you apply for schools. If you do qualify for free and reduced lunch, then that means you do also qualify for a SAT fee waiver through the College Board. And the College Board, if you go in a really roundabout way, but if you qualify for the SAT fee waiver, the College Board also has fee waivers for colleges. So there are some College Board specific fee waivers that you can use for private schools. And another resource is through ACT. So ACT also has some fee waivers that you can use for your private schools. Though I will note, if you are going to apply to the UCs, CSUs, you get 4 free UC, 4 free CSU, right? If you qualify. So if you apply to additional UC CSUs and you decide to use there's only a certain number of College Board fee waivers that you can get. So if you use them for the UCs, then you can't double use them for the private schools as well. So you get, I believe it's 4 College Board fee waivers. I'm not sure about the ACT fee waiver number, but there are 4 College Board fee waivers for college applications, and you can't double use them. But if you decide to use them for private schools, you can use them for private schools. There are also some programs like College Track that will help you pay for those programs if you are a member of College Track, or QuestBridge, I believe, also helps you pay for private school applications.
That was one of the last questions we had, was if QuestBridge works with Common App in the application there. So it sounds like they do.
Yeah, absolutely. The beauty about QuestBridge is that they not only help you find the right college, but they also will help you apply for the right colleges, and those applications will happen through the Common App.
And then our last question is if your email is available to contact you.
Yeah, next slide.
There we go.
If that's too small, I can also type it in the chat.
Put it here. So GANGUIANO.
Thank you.
Of course. Thank you so much for your time today and all of that amazing information you were able to share with us.
Of course, I'm happy to be here. Thank y'all for having me.
Thanks, Gracie. I wanted to open it up in the last, we've got a minute now for any questions that anyone has about anything that we went over today. I know it was jam-packed full of knowledge and information that might have been the first time you heard it or the second time, but still can be pretty new. You're always welcome to reach out to EAOP, CSEO here at UCSF for anything that later on you might even have questions about. But here in the question chat, if you have something specific, please shoot it out. Can I get more info on EAOP? I'll hand that over to Emmanuel. What information can you give about EAOP?
So EAOP is a program from each UC campus in California, which there's 10 of them. And us at CSEO are part of UCSF's early academic outreach program. So each EAOP program, each UC has a EAOP program. With that, if you do not know of an EAOP program by your school, that's okay. There's other programs that could help you out with this. Gracie works for Talent Search. I have a lot of colleagues that work for College Track. And if there's not one that you're a part of or not around you that you could take advantage of the educational opportunity, then please reach out to us and we'll be able to help answer your questions and make this process easier. I don't want to say it's a difficult process, it's just an adjustment. So remember that all this is an adjustment of something new, it's a transition, and it's something that you just have to get comfortable with. And that's what we're here for.
Thank you, Emmanuel. Do you want to invite everyone back for tomorrow where we have 3 other separate sessions where we're going to be talking about distinct information? If we weren't able to get to any of your questions today, tomorrow we'll be here again. Emmanuel will be sending out that link, and we hope that today was full of information for you. Thank you for joining us.
Great job, everyone. Thank you, Karen. Thank you to our panelists, Jackie, Gabriela, Gracie, for joining us. And also see y'all tomorrow to learn more about the University of California application, the CSU application, and also financial aid. Take care, everyone.